another week of our summer-themed Facebook Lives. Jen's worked up a really fun project for today, and it's kind of got a nostalgic element.
It's definitely got a bit of a throwback element. Back when we were like 8, so this is a solid 30 years ago, Grandma...
Stop telling people how old we are.
We're 38. Grandma made us these fun travel pillows that had a little bag that they went in. Because at the time, we were living in Washington and they were in eastern Idaho, and it was a long drive. Anyway, I was kind of brought that up with Liz the other day, like, oh, do you remember those pillows and bags?
And when she said it, then I did. But
and then when I mentioned it, she remembered. But I thought, wouldn't it be fun to make those for my own kids? Because we've got some summer trips coming up. I decided to schedule vacations this year that were not cancelable. So we have no flights or anything, so we're driving. Because I wanted nothing canceled this year. So that means lots of time in the car with kids. And you know they pack all kinds of stuff.
Kindles and things like that, which are great, except the batteries do die. You can only charge so many at a time. She has 4 kids.
Right.
And I have 3, and so I can only charge a couple Kindles at a time in my car. Mm-hmm. And surprisingly, the back seat doesn't reach the charger up front.
That's why you buy the 10-foot cables.
I know, but still. Anyway, and I don't like them on their Kindles the entire time we're in the car. So
And sometimes you get tired. And then your brother says, hey, she's laying on me.
And then they start fighting over everything.
Right.
And so these are kind of travel bags that my grandma made for us. And what they are, and Jen made them out of exactly 1 yard of fabric. So you can choose a novelty fabric that works for whoever the kid is in your life.
Right. So mine are, like this one I made out of Summer in the Cotswolds, which is not really a novelty line at all. It's got bees and gold and pretty things, sparkly and bicycles. But I have a 12-year-old who, thinks she's growing up.
Yes.
So this is for her. It has a nice little 12x16 pillow.
Envelope-backed pillow. So something small to lay on in the car so they're not bringing their huge bed pillow and taking up a ton of space. It does fit in the bag. Along with a
little bit of extra room.
Some extra room. So you can go ahead and shove, this is my quilty coloring book. Although her 12-year-old would probably love it.
Yeah, Lily would love that.
You can go ahead and shove that in there, and some crayons.
There's still room for some snacks and the Kindle.
The Kindle, the charger, the headphones, because if you're like me, and you have 3 kids on a Kindle in your car, they all require headphones, because I cannot listen to that. And then they cinch it up, and it's a great little road trip bag. It's a great airplane bag even, because my kids are always trying to steal my pillows on airplanes. So, things like that.
We thought we'd make some fun novelty little travel bags. So this one I made for my 12-year-old. This one's for my 8-year-old little boy, because cars and trucks and fire trucks can't be better. This one I picked out of our Bella Ballerina. So this is from On the Go by Stacy Eastshoe. This one is for my 5-year-old little ballerina girl. She's 5. It's from the Bella Ballerina fabric line. Yours is almost 5.
I know. He's not 5 yet, though. He's still 4.
For a month. So this is for my 5-year-old. And then the last one we're going to make this morning for you guys is from Ahoy Mermaids, which is awesome.
For a 9-year-old girl.
For 10. She's 10 now.
Her kids all have birthdays right before my kids have birthdays.
Yeah, so mine are all 3 months older than hers. So mine have all had their birthdays, and her kids have their birthdays in the summer. So she thinks they're younger than they are. They were the same age as your kids 3 months ago. But now they're not.
No, I know.
All right. So we did this out of exactly 1 yard of fabric. So we're going to start by just cutting our width of fabric strips. The first one we're going to cut is for the pillowcase, and that's going to be 12.5 inches wide by width of fabric.
I'm going to go ahead and straighten out this edge right here.
Please do. I will type up some instructions for this, but they're not going to be really crazy detailed. So I do expect this video will help get you through it. But what we're going to do is, for the pillow, we need a 12.5 inch width of fabric cut. We're going to then subcut that to be one piece that's 12.5 by 16.5 and 2 pieces that are 12.5 by 11. Now, what I have here, I'm just going to take this out of the way because we're going to do all the width of fabric cuts first.
What next?
The next one is we're going to do the straps. So that's going to be 3 2-inch width of fabric cuts. If you're new to this game, width of fabric means selvage to selvage. So basically it's going to be 42 to 44 inches wide.
Depending on how
Depending on the fabric. I mean, sometimes 45. You just don't know.
I was gonna say,
it varies.
Come in lately that were.
It varies even within a fabric
fat.
line. So the same line and the same manufacturer. That's why whenever you buy fabric and it says like 42-44,
it's somewhere in that range.
Anywhere in that range.
I don't guarantee
don't
more than 40
plan-
usable inches usually.
Right. I don't usually plan more than like. This one we're going to use 42. Okay.
Well, because it's straps.
And then what we're going to do here with the rest, which should be about 17 and a half inches, we're just going to straighten up the other edge.
Straighten up.
Straighten up.
Yeah, look at that.
So
17 and a half if I straighten it up.
Yep.
Straighten it up.
Straighten it up.
Straighten it up.
Straighten it up. So we're going to go ahead and see. So one of mine, I had to do a little more straightening, and so it ended up being like 16 and a half, 17. This is not the biggest deal about what size it is. But 16 and a half to 7.
Used an entire.
And then what we're gonna do here for the bag is we're gonna turn this on the side here. No, leave it like that because there's no reason to sew a bottom. It's already together. Leave it as a panel. So cut this to be 21 inches long, or if you do open it up, 42 inches long.
I'm gonna not open it up because then I don't have to.
Right,
because my cutting mat's only 36.
And honestly, this just makes it easy. And what we're lopping off like an inch and a half on the end, that's, in my opinion, waste anyway. So,
it's selvage.
Right. See, so some of the fabrics I did have like 2 inches
it's a super cute selvage, but it's selvage.
It is, right? So,
this is a bag.
This is a bag.
Really hard.
These are going to be straps. And while I start this, I'm going to have her subcut that one for the pillow. Again, 12 and a half by 16 and a half, and then 2 that are 12 and a half by 11.
Because when we're doing envelope pillows, you guys, if you're new to that,
they
have to overlap, and they need to overlap somewhat significantly.
It doesn't need to be a crazy amount, but too little and it's open, too much, and you're going to have a heck of a time putting the pillow in. This is a decent overlap here. It's about 3 inches or so. The first one I did, because, you know, I was just playing with numbers last night. I started these at like 7:30 last night. So, you know, I was making this up as I went. As we were playing with numbers here, the first one I did have a little more of an overlap. I still got the pillow in there just fine, but it took a little bit of extra work. All right. So while she does that, I'm going to start by sewing our straps together. We're going to sew these together just as if we were doing binding. Oh. You want to grab that pillow off of there?
Oh, yeah.
The other thing you need for this, guys, is a pillow form. I just ordered these off Amazon because I remembered what we were doing Monday night, and other places don't get it to me that fast. And I didn't have time to go to 12 stores. So this is a 12 by 16 pillow form. If you want to make your pillow slightly larger, great. Slightly smaller, great. I did it this size because it's big enough for the head to lay on, but again, we're dealing with travel in a car. I don't want big because I have 4 kids. Like, this takes up space. Multiplied. All right, so our last thing, now we're going to sew our straps together. I'm going to sew these together like binding. I'm going to go ahead and do it at a 45-degree angle because as I fold it, we're going to do it as a double fold bias, binding type thing. No, double fold binding, not on the bias. My pedal's upside down. The reason I do that is because folding it over itself 4 times, it can get bulky, and I don't like bulk. I didn't put that right.
I was like, that is bigger than 11.
No, definitely bigger than 11. Just so I can get all of these together, and then I'm going to let Liz start pressing this, because that's going to take a few minutes. And then we will start putting together other things. Actually, before we start pressing this, what I would love you to do, Liz, is do press the edges of those so that we can hem it.
We're going to hem the edges.
So what we're going to do is fold it over once and press it, you know, somewhere around 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, then fold it over again and press it. That way it is a
You
nice
just have to top
finished
stitch
edge.
it.
And then we'll top stitch it. So like with this one, there's just a little white top stitch. That's the reason I'm using funky colored thread, because we're going to see my thread on the outside.
Got it?
So I'm going to let her go ahead and press that. And while she does that, make sure you're pressing the 11 inch, not the 12.5, or you'll be sad.
That's what I was just checking.
Right? Well, while she's doing that, we're going to like multitask here and make a bag. We have our nice little panel here. We're going to flip it in half the other way so that it's right sides facing, because when we sew, we like right sides facing. Now, we're going to do it so that we have this little casing in the top for the cinch strap to go through. In order to do that, we have to leave a slot open on the side as we sew that together. So what I'm going to do, as I push her to the side a little bit here,
I'm used to it.
is I'm going to take a marking pen and a ruler, and I'm going to go ahead and mark 2 inches down, and then I'm going to do another mark an inch below that. So this one's at 2 inches, and this one is at 3 inches. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to mark 2 inches down, and then another inch below that.
Over your case.
So that as I sew it together, I leave that space open so that I can have a casing. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin this. Now when I sew this together, I'm not going to sew the entire side because I need to get my strap sewn in at the bottom. And I can't sew my strap in until I've made the casing and run the strap through the casing. So
we have to leave it.
We're going to sew it most of the way and probably leave about 4 inches open at the bottom.
That's one.
Can you tell we're used to working on top of each other?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Should be obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So there are tools out there for getting your hem just right and measuring so you can do this, you know,
Really, really, really
pressing your
precise.
hems. I really don't care about it being super precise
Well,
on the back of a pillow.
This is the inside of a pillow. It's not an evening gown. So
I'm not necessarily using one of those tools. I'm eyeballing 1/4 inch. I'm pretty good at that, but no need to get super
there's
fancy or fancy
room.
here.
There's room in the size of this for some adjustment. So if it ends up being a little more than 1/2 inch, it's going to be fine.
Well, especially because pillow forms, you kind of want to make the case a little bit smaller than your form if you want your pillow to be full and puffy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Pillow forms, they say it's like 20 by 20, but if you put that in a 20 by 20 pillow, it tends to be kind of flat.
It's going to be kind of empty looking.
And I don't like that. All right, so I'm doing this with a 1/4 inch seam. You can use whatever seam width you like. But a 1/4 inch is what I have on here, and that works for me. You know, if you don't have a 1/4 inch foot on your machine and you're at like
3/8, you're also fine. Do you want me to pin this for you, or are you good?
No, that would be fine. What I would love is for you to start pressing this sucker.
No.
All right, so I sewed my 2 inches down. I back stitched there. Well, it's stone.
I know.
I back stitched it, and now I'm gonna go forward, lower my needle. I'm gonna back stitch here again, just because I'm gonna pull on this seam. Oh wow, that's lovely. Apparently my tension is awful.
Horrifying. Sorry.
This is real life.
Just gonna point out to her that her tension's.
That's really bad.
No bueno.
No
Got
bueno.
better, but no, it didn't.
No, it didn't.
I'm gonna make her fix it real fast because otherwise this bag's not gonna work out very well. The straps will be fine.
Right. Well, because I'm only gonna sew over that twice more.
Exactly. So that's why I'm not worried about it on the strap. But in the meantime, before she does a finished hem, I'm gonna make her fix her tension.
Right.
So double fold.
Double fold.
Okay. Let me explain double fold binding. I have no idea.
I'm throwing scissors on the ground. I'm gonna steal these.
Okay. So our typical binding, what most of us are used to, is what we call a French binding, where you just fold it in half, and that's good, right? So to do this, we're gonna start by doing that. That's step number 1.
And honestly, I wish I would have brought my best press. I forgot, but that
I think
makes.
there's some in the closet over there. I think we'll grab
but that makes it a lot easier. Also, when all else fails with tension, rethread, and then play some more.
Start over.
Actually, not when all else fails. Before you play too much, rethread.
Rethread. Because chances are you're out of a disc or you missed something jumped out of a thread guide.
Right? And it's amazing how much that can throw things off.
Yeah.
So, it's amazing how often your tension problem can be fixed by rethreading. Though I did tighten the upper tension.
That's good. The bottom looked just totally out of whack. So
Right. Something was off. Yeah. This is also why we keep extra fabric around.
Play with. Okay. So went ahead and
much better.
Anytime we're making binding and we have those seams right here where we put our binding together, we press the seam open because we're going to fold this a million times over itself, and that's going to create a lot of bulk. And so we always want to press this open. If you press it to the side, you end up with quite a bit of bulk in here. Okay, and we're just going to go back up and down a couple times. I'm going to heat up this iron a little bit more. And we're going to start just by folding it in half.
Seriously, nice and hot.
Keep your
iron nice and
hot.
hot.
This is an old iron, so the hotter it gets, the more clicky it is. But that means it's really hot, which is great.
Right, the clicking means it's working.
Yes. I turned it down when I wasn't using it because, you know, the clicky is loud, but
yeah. It's kind of satisfying though.
It's super duper hot.
I love my old irons. But you guys know that.
Big secret around here, we like vintage irons. My dad's still working on soldering mine back together.
That's still not sewing well.
Okay, use the other thread.
Yep. And gray thread it is.
Gray thread will look great. It's fine.
That's better than that.
Yes, it is. Okay.
Seriously,
Really,
guys, sometimes things just don't work, and you just do what you can.
Alrighty. Okay, so once you have this all pressed in half, we get to do this process essentially 3 times.
Right.
And I do it 3 times. Some people try and do the other 2 steps at once.
I don't have a lot of success with that.
I don't either. And so I just run through this multiple times. I have done binding on quilts using this method, just an FYI. When I want my binding to be thicker, or if I don't need it to be necessarily reinforced because it's not a quilt, I'm going to wash a lot.
Or really drag around. That's really where the binding gets worn.
Because the reason we have our bindings doubled up on those sides is because the binding is where the quilt is going to wear the fastest. And so, but if it's more of a decorative quilt or a wall hanging, then it's not going to wear that fast. And so having that double fold on the binding isn't as big of a deal. So then sometimes you can do this kind of binding where it becomes a frame instead of just a narrow strip of binding. So this is actually it is a method for binding, and I used to bind most of my quilts this way. I don't much anymore, but
it just takes longer.
It
takes longer to make it, but if you buy pre-made binding, a lot of times this is what it comes looking like. Alright, we're going to loosen that up some more.
So what I did here, you guys, I opened it back up where my fold is, and I'm folding it in on this back side, back into the fold. Okay, so if you buy bias tape pre-made from the store, which by the way, if you don't want to do this step, you can buy bias tape pre-made from the store.
Honestly,
or not our store, but Hobby Lobby and Joann's has it.
But twill tape too.
A twill tape would work. Cording, take your pick. Any of those things work.
I just wanted to do the whole project, because I'm a dork, out of 1 yard of fabric. So that's why I did it this way. Plus, I think it's cute.
I do think it's cute. But if this seems like the most tedious step in the world to you, there are alternatives.
It is the step that takes the longest.
Which is why she's going to make a bag and a pillow, and I'm going to press binding. So, that's all right.
Right, it's going to be fine.
So we're just going to press it in, and then we're going to turn it over, and I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side. And then I'm going to press them all together, and it's going to be a matching, essentially, tape to go with the bag.
Right. All right, I just skipped over right here. I'm going to go ahead and snip that so it's not puckering.
You got it?
Yeah, it's still a little tight, but it'll work.
Okay.
All right, so now that my machine's actually kind of working.
Ooh, I can tell I'm next to a hot iron. This room was cold when I got here.
I know, I wore a sweater because it was chilly today.
Not anymore.
Not standing next to this thing.
And when I'm at home, you guys, I do use a little bit of steam when I'm doing this. Jen uses Best Press because it does set my folds.
Right.
Really
It means I can make it and get back to it later to sew it.
Yeah.
Which I can't necessarily do
If I'm not
otherwise, because the fold won't
setting
hold
it
forever.
With the, so yeah, this is the one time I get out my big steam iron. Jen uses Best Press. Either method works.
Yeah, I buy that stuff by the gallon, so I have plenty.
So do I, but I just find that the steam is so easy.
Oh, see, my Best Press lives on my cutting and ironing area.
I know. But yeah, the one time the steam mode gets really turned on my iron is when I'm doing bindings.
Wow, I'm having issues today.
Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and turn it around. I find it easier for me to work from the back. And so that's why I completely turned it over instead of just dragging it down.
I agree.
It's easier for me to fold it this way and hold it than to try and be like here and come up from, that's because I'm right-handed. Do it whatever works for you. But that's why I have to flip it around and come back, because I find that I just have an easier time of it if I only work from the back.
Yep.
So once I get this press done all the way down, I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half again and press it again. Right, you need to do each step individually. Okay, and then we end up with an awesome little tape. So I'm just going to keep going. And Jen's
I'm going to tell you what I'm doing.
Going to make a bag, and those are,
so
we got one already.
I'm just going to sew a very narrow seam. I'm probably an 1/8 or less of an inch away from the edge of my fold.
For the hem.
Right up here. From this part, I'll take this off and show you where I'm sewing from. Well, I've got to go a little further. Because, you know, we're compulsive chain piecers. So I'm sewing because I want to make sure I get the hem here, but I'm just about an 1/8 of an inch in from where that fold is. That way this edge is nice and finished on both sides. We're not going to see any fraying at all. All right, and then while she finishes that, I'm going to show you how we put an envelope pillow together.
This is really tricky. It's not tricky at all.
It's awesome. This is why we love envelope pillows.
They're
I mean, we
so
make nice
easy.
quilted fancy ones. This is as simple as it gets. We're going to
Same
lay
process.
this out.
Right sides together.
Right sides together. Lay this one on top.
Unless you're going to bind the outside because it's quilted. But
Right.
this sense. Sorry.
These aren't the same size.
You told me to do the 11.5.
No.
Oops.
Oops. Okay, so it's going to have a big overlap because she pressed the wrong way because the pillow is 12.5 inches tall. I meant the 11.5 the other way. Don't ever cut like this. It's not how we use rotary cutters.
Bad example.
Bad example.
It's a really good way to cut yourself. So
It is,
don't do that.
and plus it's not very accurate, so don't do that. Anyway, we're going to lay these on top,
be an
right
extra
sides
stuffy
facing.
pillow.
This will be an extra stuffy pillow. Honestly, losing that 1 inch, I could pull out these seams, but you know, we're already having a bit of a day here, so we're not gonna. We're just gonna adjust and move forward. Because some seams are worth ripping and others are not. This one's not. Alright, I like to get several pins in here. I do pin them one at a time because I want to make sure that this doesn't get tucked or moved or anything weird like that. Then I'll just put a couple in the side here. I broke my rule yesterday and sewed over a pin and broke my needle. So I know.
Don't sew over pins.
I don't like sewing over pins. Sometimes you get off easy and it just breaks your needle. Other times it goes into your bobbin assembly and destroys things.
She's had that happen to her before.
I have had that happen before. So don't sew over pins. All right, so the next one also goes on top, goes on here. Right side of this facing the right side of the pillow front, okay? So this one, the overlap here, it's going to be right side facing wrong side. That's fine. We're worried about the front of the pillow. Again, line up my corners. Make sure they match because we match the areas that matter the most.
Yes, that's what matters.
And that's what matters here. And then, again, I'm just going to go around and pin it in place. The sewing on this is about as easy as it gets because I'm just going to sew all the way around the outside.
Now, one thing that you can do to shore it up, because we are going to have to pull at it.
I do.
To stuff our pillow in there, is when you go over this part right here.
And this one right here. That's
and
underneath.
This one right here that you can feel. Backstitch over that and go over it twice. Well, that makes it like 3 times. And what that's going to do is that's going to shore up that seam, because that is where this pillowcase is going to get pulled on. It's where the pressure is going to come from, and it's where things...
That's where all the stress will be. So if this rips...
It's not in the corners. It's going to be right there.
It's going to be right there. I will say, so the one my grandma made me forever ago, I still had it until a couple years ago. So it lasted, and I kept it. I don't know what happened to the bag. I think I probably bedazzled it and put puffy paint on it when I was a kid. And so it probably disappeared a long time ago. I do remember bedazzling it. If anybody remembers bedazzling,
I put rhinestones and puff paint on everything.
You were probably about my age.
If you are a child of the 80s and 90s.
Right.
While you tried to record songs off the radio with a tape player.
Right. And the stupid DJ talked
over the last 3 seconds.
That was the worst. The worst. When the stupid DJ would talk, you're like, I had the recording. I was right there.
We are aging ourselves.
We are aging ourselves. It's okay. My age doesn't really bother me. Though it was funny the other day when when Liz didn't remember how old we were.
I didn't. Oh my goodness, you guys. We were in the store.
It was really fun.
And, what did you say something?
I said something about
Sarita turns 40 this year.
Sarita turning 40.
And I said, no, she doesn't. And she's like, yeah, she does. I said, but we're 38. And Sarita's only a year older. I mean, she's a year and 12 days older than us, you guys. Or 13 days. Something like that.
Liz is like, no, we're turning 38 this year. I'm like, we are 38.
We are 38. And I was like, what?
No, we're not.
I'm like, I'm not that close to 40. And she says, yes, you are. And then I said, my husband's 43. Yeah, I guess I am. Okay.
It was just really funny because she was sure. She wasn't even kidding me. She was sure.
I was like,
that I was wrong about her
39?
age.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it threw my kids off because my husband's birthday was 2 days ago. And they were like, so how old's Dad? I'm like, he's 38. They're like, but you're 38. I'm like, I know. We're the same age for like 5 months.
I've never been anywhere near the same age as him.
Yeah.
I enjoy the few months out of the year when he's 5 years older than me instead of 4. Because then I can tease him about being old. And then I have a birthday and he tells me I'm getting old. So it doesn't really work. But
yeah.
I had not processed that we were going to be 39 this year. And somehow 39 feels really painful. Because it's like, no, the 30s are ending.
Right? The 30s are liberating. It's like, I'm like a real grown-up. So, you know, it's not like you're the young adult that people still are like, oh, you're an idiot. You don't know anything. I'm a real grown-up in my 30s. And it's like, crap, stuff stops working.
What do you want me to do with this?
I want you to press the sides open down to about here. Press the seam open.
Okay.
All right, and now we have a pillowcase.
And tape.
And tape. And I'm going to sew the tape. Or do you want to sew the tape while I do this part?
Why don't you do that?
Let's trade
spots.
Turn a pillow. I brought my turning tool to get the corners.
I can even do that.
Okay.
How to turn a pillow.
And then do an 1/8 of an inch on each side of this.
I can do that too.
Awesome. We're going to trade. All right, so now we've made our bag. What do we do with it, right?
Okay, so turning, there's
I'm gonna
reason
turn
she
the
has this
iron
little
a little
turning
bit.
tool, you guys, because it's hard to poke the corners out. And I don't really want to trim these corners so they're really
No.
close to the seam, because that weakens it, and this is actually going to get used.
Right.
So I take my little pointy tip on my turning tool and just poke at them a
Just
little
poke them. Don't poke hard.
Don't
Because
poke hard, 'cause
can
you will break through.
And we don't want to do that. All right, where's our little ruler? There we go. All right, so to make the casing on this bag, I'm going to press the seam open here. It doesn't have to go all the way down.
bit. See, I poked through.
Oh, good job.
Don't poke hard.
And then I'm going to do the same thing
Bloody.
on the other side. That seems
That's
really
okay.
lovely.
Charlotte knows how to fix it herself.
Right, Charlotte can fix it herself. This is my daughter that loves to sew.
And works at the shop. So if you ever get phone calls saying that your quilt's ready from a...
And you're like, why is there a
10-year-old.
10-year-old calling me?
It's Lottie.
It's Charlotte.
That's what she does.
Okay, so now we need to make our casing. The first thing I'm going to do is, just like with the sides of the pillow here, I'm going to turn the top down about 1/4 of an inch-ish.
Okay,
And
one thing
press
I
all the
want to
way
mention
around.
real fast while she's doing that, I need to sew 1/8 of an inch on either side of this tape. I'm going to start on the open side.
Please do.
Okay? Don't start on the folded side. Start on the open side. Okay? And if your things don't match up, your two sides don't match up 1,000%, no big deal. Okay? Pretty darn close is good enough.
It really is. Like, I dare you to find it on my bag. So, the bag I did for my oldest daughter, of course I had to choose a directional fabric. Mostly because the Summer of the Cotswolds fabric is gorgeous. And,
And I broke the thread. Just
sorry.
kidding.
But I chose a directional fabric, which meant my pillow and my bag had to go a different direction. So we cut it out slightly different. And so my
It's still tight.
my binding tape, whatever, strapping, actually goes 2 different directions because I had to cut shorter pieces and sew more of them
But it's
together.
spikes, and so I dare you to notice.
Well, and I mean, there's got the stripes, so like, oh, it's caught on there. Oh, never mind. Here it's horizontal, and here it's vertical. If you want to look really closely, you can see that that's different. If you care tremendously, go buy another 1/8 of a yard. I didn't care tremendously, so I still wanted to see if I could do it directionally out of 1 yard of fabric, because I love a challenge, and I did, so that made me happy. All right, so the next fold down I'm going to do here, I'm going to go down 1.5 inches. Now, 1.5 inches is a lot harder to eyeball than 1/4 of an inch, because you could be anywhere between 1.5 and feel like you're in the right place. But basically what I need to do is I have a little opening right here. My seam inside here needs to go past that. That's what I'm going for, and that's why I want it nice and big here at 1.5 inches. So I'll take a trusty little ruler like this. I can set it right on top or slide it under,
My little jumper thing.
and then pin it in place. And as I go around, it's really handy to do this on something like an ironing board where I can move it around and not have other things underneath. I can just put this underneath here and tuck it down to 1 inch, or 1.5 inches rather, and put another pin in place. I'm just going to do that as I go around. And that's how we make our casing. And what I'll do when I'm done pinning this is sew it down, obviously. Again, right near the edge, about 1/8 of an inch. I'm saying 1/8 of an inch, but
Near the edge.
no bigger than 1/8 of an inch. Preferably
I'm not
slightly
a full,
smaller.
I'm not an 8.
Right, preferably slightly smaller. It's just that if I tell somebody to sew at 3/16, they might yell at me.
Probably. I would.
So, as
Close to the edge, but
as
catching
being-
everything.
right, those are the words. Close to the edge, but catching it all.
This is where having used steam or best press would be nice, because then it would stay closed really well.
No, I mean, my husband came in to talk to me last night as I was making this, and you know, if you have things feeding really well and something like that, I just had one finger here and one finger here, and my foot like all the way down. And I'm like looking back at him, and we're having this whole conversation over a few minutes. And he's like, you're not even looking at what you're doing. I'm like, I don't need to. It's feeding properly. I had it laid nicely down in front of my table, so there wasn't a lot of friction. And
yeah,
it stayed closed really well because I'd used Best Press. This is the long, tedious part of it. So even with what Liz is doing right now, I'm going to move this back so you can see it better. She's just kind of keeping her fingers in the same place. It's always really challenging when I'm trying to teach beginning sewing, especially to children, to explain you need to have enough pressure to hold the fabric in place, but it needs to, your touch needs to be loose enough that the fabric can slide underneath it. And that doesn't always make sense to people.
No. But that's what's happening. The fabric is moving under my fingers, and my fingers just slightly guide it along.
Right.
But I'm not moving my fingers with the fabric.
Nope.
Because then what happens is you're pulling on the fabric.
Plus, then you can only sew a few inches at a time, rather than this, where she's not having to adjust.
I've got 120 inches or so of sewing to do here. So if I do it 4 inches at a time, we'll be here for a while.
Right. And
actually, I have 120 inches times 2, so...
Right.
It's a long seam.
You gotta go back.
But I'm gonna let Jen do her casing in between. Because, well, then she can show you how to finish it.
Well, I need that to finish it.
Oh, you don't? Oh, then I'll just do the other
So
side.
just go ahead and finish.
Pull it back. Start over.
Right. I'm gonna steal a pillow and stuff it.
Oh, you can do that real fast. That was fun.
Let's actually turn the pillowcase into like a pillow, yeah?
Because right now it's just a flat thing.
Right, you're like, well, this is exciting. Do you love that the trash can got moved under the table?
Yes, I do. Instead of over there.
When we were doing that cork bag and it was over there, nothing landed in the trash. She kept trying, but nothing made it. And we came back the next week and it's still on the ground right there.
Nobody comes in here.
Nobody comes in here except for us, so...
And the second side is faster because it doesn't have an opening.
Right, so it's really just guiding it through the machine. Okay, so because we did the wrong sides on this one, because we like to show you what not to do, my overlap is way bigger than I like.
So you need to
have to really kind of shove it in there, but do it gently enough so you're not ripping your seam open.
That's why we went over those seams like 3 times.
Right. But yes, this is definitely a more stuffed pillow.
See, it's stuffier. I love stuffy pillows.
I do love stuffy pillows. By stuffed, she means like fuller.
Flat pillows are not my thing.
Anyway, now we have a mermaid pillow.
We're about to have a mermaid bag.
We will have a mermaid bag in only a few minutes.
I know, we're almost done. And I'll trade Jen's spots because I'm going to make her finish the bag.
Another tool we're going to use today is the giant safety pin.
I know that they make other tools for this, but Jen and I grew up in the era of scrunchies, which are somehow back. Yeah. And we made a million scrunchies using a safety pin. And so, the safety pin method is what we know.
Right.
Did I run out of thread? I ran out of thread.
Hey, look, here's another one.
I know. I was like, it's pulling up.
At least you didn't finish without thread.
I notice when my bobbin runs out.
I do too. It actually, I think it also comes from long arming. You know, we do so much sewing. But even on my domestic machines, it sounds different.
It sounds different. The sound changes when the bobbin runs out.
So, you'll know you do too much sewing when you can hear the bobbin run out.
I can also hear the bobbin get tight on the long arm from all the way across the room.
I know. I crossed the room one day because I was like, stop that. I want to look at it. She was like, what?
Not me.
I'm like, somebody else. And I was like, your tension's off.
They're like, what? I'm like, from across the room, I can hear it. The tension's off.
And it's because, like, the bobbin thread has gotten caught on a little loop or something. So the machine has to work harder to try and get it out.
So it sounds like it.
But you might do this too much when you can hear that from across the room.
Yeah.
And by across the room, I mean across the shop. with people
full
there.
of people. Yeah, so it's... came off. Because I'm going fast.
I know.
And we don't have our little guide on here.
We don't.
All good.
This machine did not like that thread.
No, it did not at all. Not even a little.
That's okay. This light gray looks just fine. Must have a leader under. Because, well, you've met us.
Okay, I'm gonna
And
find
you trade
where
in.
There we go.
Oh.
I need to snip those little threads.
And you need to cut it in half.
And cut it in half, apparently.
Because we need to make 2 straps.
Do you want me to cut the selvage ends off? Or
No,
leave them
because that's
poke?
going to just poke right out the bottom.
Okay, it's gonna poke right out the bottom.
We're not going to... It's fine. You can cut the selvage off if you want to.
If you like the fancy method for cutting in half,
fold it in half.
fold it in half and cut down the middle.
Great. There's absolutely no reason to spend time measuring that.
None at all. Especially because, look, I didn't even fold it the right way. It can be approximate. If it's off by a centimeter,
Not going to be a
it's
big
probably
deal.
off by a millimeter, so it's fine. There we go. 2
All right.
straps made to match our cute little mermaidy bag. Which is
Man,
adorable.
some of the fabrics from this line are
There's like scales and
and metallic gold on
Yes.
them. This is one of the few prints that didn't have the gold metallic on it.
but that mermaid has a pirate hat on. Which is pretty much awesome, I think.
Right? And they all look different. They've got some different hair and different skin.
Skin tones and different.
But that's kind of like,
with fishes and bubbles.
I wanted to do a bag out of Stem Squad, but I'd already made a quilt, so
She didn't.
I didn't.
I know. She's like, I'm gonna use on the go, and I thought I've already made 2 projects with on the go, so
You're done?
I'm kind of
You're
done with
happy?
that one. There's just so many other fabric lines for me to play with, so I'll play with something else.
Speaking of, if you didn't get a phone call, American Gathering Fat Quarter bundles are in the shop.
So if you've been waiting for one,
They are finally here.
hurry up.
Yeah.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Right.
It's
By
kinda
speak
where we're
now, either call or hurry in.
Or order it online.
Or order online. Even if you're local, you can order online for a local pickup and not pay shipping.
Correct. You done?
I am done.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna let her show you how to finish this. You guys, what I want to show you is we did an entire bag and pillow out of 1 yard of fabric, and this is
That's our leftovers.
leftovers. This is what got wasted. Not wasted, technically. So it's a very efficient use of fabric.
Right? Right?
And
There's like nothing
seriously,
left
this
over.
bowl is heavy. Jen made this.
It's not going to go anywhere though.
And it's got a little heart in it. She's pretty proud of it. See, she put her initials
I have to put my initials on it, otherwise the kiln tech doesn't know who it belongs to.
No, that's true.
So you have
Anyway.
to do a potter's mark.
So, but every time I pick it up, I think it should be like my scrap bowl at home.
It's heavy.
And it's way heavier than that.
It's okay. It doesn't fall over.
That's true. Mine doesn't either. I
Well,
use my pasta dish. I have my scrap bowl.
Well, that's
at
what I
home.
made. I made a pasta dish.
I know.
That's what that is.
My I started using it forever ago. I love the what's her name? Pioneer Woman like dishes and stuff at Walmart. Yeah, I am. And so they had some of her pasta dishes, and I don't use them for pasta because who would do that? And one of them is other people. I have one that's my scrap dish at my sewing table for cutting, because when you have to go find the trash can or get to the trash can every time, or you just make a mess on the table, it's anyway.
I
I
have a scrap bowl on one by my sewing machine and one on my cutting table.
Yes, because
sometimes I need one there, and sometimes I'm cutting off
mine
corners
just
while I'm
moves.
at my sewing table.
And the other one that I bought is my bowl of like chapstick and coins and crap on my desk.
Oh, those little
Like
things
the
you lose.
spare keys and that bowl of, probably has a garage door opener in it, stuff.
Right.
The little plasticky things for your earbuds that you
Oh,
don't want to throw away, but if you lose them, you're sad when you lose one.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep, I do. All right.
That was all a very technical
I
way to put
just
this.
did this
Okay.
and didn't explain any of it. So luckily there's another side to do.
Sorry guys, I was being distracted by a bowl.
She was talking about bowls. But
Can I turn off the clicky?
you can turn off the clicky iron. We're done.
It's an awesome iron, but it does get kind of clicky.
Alright, I am going to backstitch
Yes,
over my strapping at the bottom because, again, this is going to be a place, oh man alive, that gets tension. And this is why I told her not to worry about cutting off the selvage. So I'm just going to whack that off. Alright, let's explain what I did.
With the other side.
With the other side. Alright, so what you're going to do is take your
grab one of these.
your strapping that you made, or whatever you're going to use.
So the way
I'm going to go in one side of the casing here
with the big,
nice big safety pin so I can feel it, and I'm going to go all the way around so that I come out the other side. Okay? It's important that the one strap goes all the way around, not just halfway, because that's what makes the bag cinch.
because that's what makes it do this.
If you don't do that, then you have to like keep tugging with each one.
So yeah, so this strap went up here all the way around and back down. This one from here up all the way around and back down.
Yep.
And that's why there's those openings on the bottom.
So I am
Then you
gonna,
can pull
this is the
this-
one I already put in. Here's my safety pin. I'm just gonna go right behind it and just keep
going.
going.
Like I said, they make tools for this, but
I
find
do
design
like
safety
to
pins.
feel through it as I go to make sure that I'm not twisting my strap.
Yes.
That can be a little hard as you go through, but I've just straightened it out when I'm done before I sew it down.
Plus, honestly, having the double strap like this, what it does is it also kind of softens it on your kid's shoulders if it gets heavy or something.
Mm-hmm.
Having it spread, the weight spread. Anytime you can spread the weight
Right.
of anything,
It helps.
it does.
All right, so then I'm going to come back out the same side where I went in. I still have a lot of tail over here, so I'm going to pull a little harder and get it through.
And you don't need to get it perfectly in the middle because it's going to
We're-
work its way
we're-
through.
It's going to work its way through just fine. I just like to have enough so that it's easy enough for me to get to the bottom. So I'm going to feel through it, make sure it's not super twisty or anything crazy. Okay, and then I'm going to put these two nice and flush next to each other.
Use the giant safety pin.
Take off the giant safety pin. And then keeping this nice and flush and flat, I slide down to that side, to my hole in the bottom, and pull it to the outside of the bag. Okay? Then I have this gap here that I haven't sewn yet. I'm going to go ahead and tuck this all the way to the bottom. Doesn't hurt to pin this.
It's not going to, but it doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt to pin it. There's no reason you have to hold it if that makes you uncomfortable. If it's feeling like that's too much, you know. And then again, I'm going to back stitch all the way over my strap. You'll notice I put it in. I'll show you before I cut it off. At an angle.
It's about 60
The
degrees.
reason is I don't want it coming straight out the side. I find this is easier, plus then I don't have to have perfect corners on the
Because then
bottom.
it can come up instead of...
And it's, okay, we're going to talk physics here. It's going to change the way the tension is on the bottom corner of the bag and decrease that amount of tension so it's more likely to last.
It's less likely to come out because it's
so
not...
when you
having the
see
same
patterns
force.
have this weird thing because that's how they've been doing it forever, it's probably because Grandma realized that this lasted longer
It
a while back. Not really realizing maybe necessarily that it's
the physics behind it, but it's physics.
It is. All right, and now we have a cinch bag. Would you like to hand me a pillow? Open it up all the way. I'm like, it's plenty long. And we're ready to go. So I've got all four of them all set for my four littles. And the other one went away. And this is a great travel bag for the summer. Like I said, it's a 1 yard pattern.
Also project for soccer bags or dance bags or...
I just really liked it holding a pillow. Plus, it was all nostalgic with Grandma.
Yep.
So, here you go. Thanks for tolerating our bit of a mess today. And we will see you next week when we do summer
Buntings.
buntings.
Yes.
Buntings
Really
are fun.
fun.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you guys.